We just recorded an episode looking at the different kinds of love, the romantic love, the friend love, the community, things like that. And at the very end of it, you said something, oh, we missed self-love. And I thought,
We
okay,
did.
that's a huge conversation just on its own. Self-love, the challenges in that, the overlap with ego, and there's so much to talk about. So I thought today we would take some time and look at what does self-love mean for us, and what are our limitations when we try to express self-love.
I wonder if so many of us spend the early parts of our lives, or really any parts of our lives, in a perpetual state of self-loathing. Um, because everybody that I ever talked to about loving themselves either isn't there yet or has gone through a journey to get there. And I am in a place in my life now where I can truthfully say I went through a journey to get there, but I'm there now. And one of the ways that I got to where I am now is by listening to the stories of other women who have been there before, which is why we do this podcast, and which is why I wanted to talk about this as well today. Self-love, what is it? How do you get there?
I want to differentiate self-love from confidence, because I have a couple people in my life who I would say, I would have said originally, are very much loving themselves, caring for themselves, thinking highly of themselves, all of these really healthy things. But in moments of weakness, I realize that it is sometimes a mask that they put on. And it's not actual self-love, it's outward confidence. And that's not the same thing. I don't think self-love is something we need to show to other people. I think it's really just for ourselves to make sure that we're valuing our own selves.
I wonder if sometimes that confidence is, like you said, a mask for the deficit of self-love that we sometimes have for ourselves. I think that not loving ourselves is in part conditioned by the culture. And I don't always want to make things gender specific, but I can speak as a woman growing up as a little girl in the 70s and 80s and 90s that, yeah, I grew up for 30 years. that that we were taught to how to hate things about ourselves, how to hate the way that we look, how to hate the way that we talk, how to hate the way that we dress, how to hate the items that we possess, how to hate the relationships that we're in. I mean, that we're taught how to hate all of that stuff. So I think it comes really naturally for us to not lean into the things about ourselves that we love, because at the same time that we're learning how to hate things about ourselves, we're also taught that when we do have things about ourselves that we like or love, that we need to be humble about that. And I hate humility. I hate the concept of humility for women, because I think it has been weaponized to keep us from loving ourselves fully and wholly.
I don't believe that humility is the antithesis of self-love. I think we can be appropriately humble, even though I know there's a lot of conditioning in that harms women. I think we can have appropriate humility and self-love at the same time. I don't think there's conflict. I think the use of humility, or the concept of humility, to make sure that we don't love ourselves is dangerous and damaging. But I don't think that they're
Yes, and I
opposites.
no, they're not opposites, but I do think that they're conflated. I think that I think I was taught as a child that humility means self-deprecation, that they kind of go hand in hand. And I think that that's a really bad misuse of humility, but also an intentional use of humility as a way to keep women from being too big, being too much, too strong, too enough, too extra. And part of my self-love journey has been to reject the notion that I'm too much, or that I'm too good, or that I'm too extra, or that I'm too lovable, and reject that too muchness, and just lean into being exactly who I am, despite it being too much or not enough.
There's so much conditioning behind all of that. So if you look at getting a compliment, right? This is something we should be able to say, "Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say." Instead, I think we, mostly as women, we beat those compliments away with a stick. Like, oh, your hair looks nice today. Oh no, it was I washed it too much, or it's dark, it looks terrible today, or whatever. It's just we beat that compliment away and we try to get it as far away from us as possible. And that's
Or
not
deflect
humility.
it. Or deflect it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but I really love your hair. Oh no, but your hair is beautiful. I know, but your lipstick goes so well with your. Stop it.
I've noticed in myself, I've been trying to not deflect compliments. So someone said something sort of the opposite of a compliment. We were discussing a third friend, and one of them said, "Oh no, I don't think they don't want to hang out with you." Something like that. And I said, "Oh no, I'm awesome. I'm not, that's not what I thought. I'm awesome." And I say that more than a well-conditioned, sweet, stay sweet, obey child should say that. But if someone says something about, you know, something in that area, I'm very quick to say, "No, no, I'm awesome. I'm great. That's not my concern." But then I always go back and regret it. I always have this sense of, "Ah, that sounded terrible." So I can say it, but I can't feel good about it.
Okay, let's explore that some.
Well, I'm sure it seems very clear to me. I'm fine saying that I'm great because I don't have concerns that people don't want to hang out with me because I'm not great or because I'm uninteresting or whatever it is. You know, whatever the situation is, I don't feel like I'm not good enough. But I'm so conditioned to not show people that I feel like I am good enough that I immediately feel that reaction. I feel the reaction that I think other people would have to me saying, "No, no, I'm great. I'm awesome."
Yeah, so what is that reaction that we fear? Because I've had that same reaction too. Like when I say that, no, I'm awesome. And then that secondary, oh shoot, how did that sound?
Right. I think we're concerned about people thinking we're too egotistical, too proud, and exactly as you're saying, too big, taking up too much room, taking up too much confidence, being too much.
Braggadocious. We also can't brag. And that's another one of those terrible, terrible words that was used to keep us small, which is don't brag. Don't brag about yourself. I don't think that it's bragging to speak the truth out loud that I really do love myself and that I do think that I'm awesome. And nowhere in there am I claiming to be perfect. And nowhere in there am I claiming that I'm better than the people that I'm around or talking to. But I think my biggest fear is that the other people are going to assume that that's what I'm saying when I claim awesomeness for myself, that it's a comparison to other people, and that's just not how I roll. I'm not a competitive person by nature. I'm a very collaborative person by nature. So, my fear is that they will take it as competition, but then I also have to just sit back and into myself and be like, "No, I that's not what I meant, and if they took it that way, that's a them problem."
It's this human nature thing we have to rank everybody. So if I think I'm awesome, immediately people might assume that I think everyone else is not awesome. But all ships rise with the tide. So why not all of us rise our tide? It doesn't have to be that because I'm awesome, other people aren't. That in fact is quite the opposite.
So that's a cultural thing that we can shift. And every time that we claim ourselves to be awesome in the presence of other people, that is us shifting the culture to a place where we can understand ourselves as community rather than as enemies or competitors or antagonists.
Just as a side note, which is exactly what we would see in a matriarchal society.
That's exactly what I was just thinking too. I was like, okay, when does this turn to the problem with patriarchy? Right now. That's
Well,
when
it's early.
it's it so I mean, at its core, this conditioning to keep women small is a patriarchal problem. And we talk so much about the problem. Today, I really do think that today I would really like to focus on moving past it as a problem and how do we do it differently. And I think that the place that you and I have both come to, which is we're very comfortable in our own skin and saying to ourselves, and even in a mirror saying, I love you, you're awesome, you're amazing, not perfect, not better than, just all by myself, I really like being with me. I like spending time with myself. I like being alone with myself. That sounds really weird and creepy. But I just do. I enjoy my own company, which is why I'm not afraid of silence, and I'm not afraid of going on a walk and not having constant chatter in my ears, although my ADHD kind of requires the constant chatter. But I'm not afraid to be alone with myself and my thoughts because I don't spiral into that horrible, awful, dark place of self-loathing. And I want to specify, not all self-loathing is given to us. A lot of it is, it's not all conditioning. A lot of it is taking the messages that we received and then running with it clear down the end of the football field with that ball of self-loathing. And I cultivated, I knew really, really well how to hate on myself for a really long time. And making the decision that that was just not sustainable for decades was probably the first thing that I had to do on my own self-love journey, which was just, first of all, acknowledge that self-loathing is not, it's not a trophy. And I think that in some ways, like we talk about busyness being a trophy, like, oh my God, I'm so busy all the time. And we lift that up almost as if it's something that we should aspire to, be too busy, because our ability to work ourselves to the bone is somehow a worthwhile goal. And similarly, I think us learning how to self-deprecate was a very similar, like, I can hate myself way better than you can hate yourself, was almost like a trophy. And I just, first acknowledging that self-loathing is not a worthwhile lifelong goal was probably a really, really hard first step for me. Just to recognize that what is going on inside of me is self-loathing, and it's not okay. And it doesn't have to be that way. There is something else that I can do. I can learn to love myself.
There's so much in there. I wanted to point out an irony that just is glaringly obvious to me. I feel like as children, we're told if you express too much self love, no one's going to like you. How ironic is that going to be? You're going to be
That's
braggadocious. You're going
yeah.
to be too proud. You're going to take up too much space, and no one's going to like you. What message is that we're giving to children?
And adults too.
Yes.
I mean, I still think a lot of these messages are, I mean, and if you think about it, the entire capitalist society hinges upon us hating, hating and being miserable, hating ourselves so that we want to buy the best clothes and the best beauty products, hating the lifestyle that requires us to have the best appliances and the best furniture and the best cars, and everything about capitalism relies upon us being unhappy. And the capitalism doesn't want to solve the problem of us being unhappy. It wants to further that problem. And so as we grow and learn how to dismiss or reject those ideas, we're also fighting against the tide.
So we're drawing a parallel between satisfaction with our lives. We need the better car, we need the better appliances, we need the better skin, and self-love. And I think there definitely is a common area in between, but I don't think they're exactly the same thing.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to imply that they're the same. What I'm saying is that the society requires us not to be happy. And part of that includes us learning how to hate ourselves. Because if we hate things about ourselves, then we continue to pour money and energy and effort into attaining things that we think will make us feel better about ourselves, instead of actually doing the work of learning how to love ourselves. Because learning to love ourselves is free. We don't have to have stuff to do that. But I think there is definitely a really close adjacent, a parallel between self-loathing and dissatisfaction with our lives.
So let's look at children. So we're talking about adults letting go of some of those old necessity to hate oneself and start to learn and become on this journey towards self-love. But let's look at children because I have two, and I feel like I maybe even praise them too much. No, not that they're perfect, and but I wanted to create so much space for them to love themselves. And I know at some point in their life they're not going to. And I'm wondering if there's anything we can do as parents to promote the idea of self-love and not give them messages around you're never going to be good enough. People won't like you if you start to like yourself. Capitalism.
Okay, so you're not going to like my answer. It has nothing to do with what we teach them and everything to do with what they see in us. It has everything to do with us learning to love ourselves and then just living that out. That is going to be far more important to their own development of self-love than anything you could possibly teach or tell them.
I hate that answer just as much as I love that answer. It's so good. It's so spot on. That's absolutely true. Because kids don't listen to anything we say, really. They look at what we do. And that's cliche, but 100% true.
I'm going to go to a place that you also might not really like. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Please take it with a grain of salt.
Hold on, let me get some
I
more.
do not. Oh, oh, okay, okay.
Got a bit of a dry mouth today. Okay, let's go. Let's go there.
Okay, let's go there. I do not like being glazed.
What's glazed?
Um, over flattered, floofed up, like poured on so much positivity that it's like, come on, really? Like it's icky, sticky, gooey with sugary blackness. Okay, that's what glazing is. Um, and I sometimes feel glazed by you.
That
So
is
don't take this
absolutely my
totally wrong.
style. No,
Yes.
I do that, but I also feel like you're reacting to glazing as a trait of narcissism or high control groups. And for me, I really
No,
just feel that way.
I think you do. I think that it's genuine for you. So this is more about me than it is about you. The way that I receive that what feels to me like over the top praise isn't comfortable for me. I feel like I respond much better to praise that is completely appropriate to, like, the level of praise is appropriate to the level of whatever it was that I did or said or thought. Where sometimes what glazing feels like to me is like, yeah, I did that. That was pretty awesome. And what I get instead was, oh my God, that was amazing, fantastic, spectacular. That feels really uncomfortable for me just because I would rather have it just like match. Like when I am awesome, I'm just awesome. Here's the other piece of it. If you are not you. If people are able to speak the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable, like, wow, that was a really hard thing you said to that person. I don't know that was probably I don't know that was the most helpful way to approach that. Okay, so when people say that to me, then I know that when they're telling me the good stuff, that it's genuine. When I get glazed, then I don't ever really know for sure what's the truth and what's glazing. What's the actual authentic truth and what's just like a little bit too over the top. And the reason that I bring this up is because exactly of the question that you just asked about children. Children smell that bullshit a million miles away. And that's why I say that I think the best way to teach our kids is just to be most authentically ourselves and loving ourselves and then modeling that for them because they know when they're being glazed.
I think in general that's true. And I understand there are many contexts to this idea of glazing. I am absolutely 100% sticky, sweet, over the top pumping people up, but it's always authentic. And if I felt the opposite, I would either try to make the most positive spin on whatever criticism I would have, or I would just keep my mouth shut if it's not up to me. But I am someone who praises people for what they do. It's just my personality. But it's
And it's
authentic. I think
great.
that's the difference. It's
And it's
authentic.
great. Okay, I need to do some reflecting because I love it when it feels authentic and I don't love it when it feels like over the top. And
No,
maybe
that's
I
totally
just need to
fair.
do more reflecting on when you so okay, so a couple of weeks ago I posted I edited together the video when you were praising me for something. And
Yes.
even though it was kind of done in tongue in cheek and it was sort of funny because I was just like, spectacular, you are amazing, amazing, intelligent, emotionally intelligent. But the reality is that's what it feels like sometimes when people praise me in what feels to me like more than what the thing actually deserves.
But that is a matter of opinion. That's not objective fact.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And
That's very true.
you had to loop through me saying the same words over and over again to make a point about it being glazing. So
Yeah.
the original text was probably just me authentically thinking that you were great, to be
And I think
honest.
you do. I do. And I think you do. So this would be a part in the process where we discuss that even people like me and you who have a really good healthy dose of self-love also aren't always perfect at it, aren't super always comfortable with just claiming the awesomeness of who we are, because we are going to mess up, we are going to do stupid things. And so part of my self-love journey is learning that it's still okay to love myself even when I'm messing up, even when I'm
I
doing
think
things that aren't blazeworthy.
this is part of the conditioning about self-love is that there's no requirement when loving oneself to be perfect. And I think that's the thing. If you're not perfect, then you can't love yourself. And that's such a damaging message. That's just not true. You can love yourself and your flaws and your mistakes, and knowing that you're going to do something stupid, probably over and over again, and still love yourself. I think that's really what it comes down to.
So in relation to the question you asked, which is how do we teach that to our children, alongside that I'm going to ask, how do we get there for ourselves as well?
Or even maintain it through adulthood. If it's something we had when we are young or had in our 20s or whenever, and it wanes and it comes back.
That
Yeah.
is really interesting now that you say it. I remember as a young child really, really loving myself, and then the world stomped it out of me, and I had to rebuild it back up for myself again. Maybe self-loathing is not something that we're born with. Maybe the world stomps love out of us. So how do we, yes, either recover it or build something new?
You're right. I think the whole concept of self-love falls completely apart if we equate it to perfection. And I think that's what the world does is stomp out self-love because we're not perfect. So you didn't get good enough grades, you didn't run fast enough, you don't have long enough hair, whatever it is. It's this constant message that we then interpret as obviously imperfection, which we can embrace, but then we make it even bigger and say, I can't love myself because of this. So we have to separate that our performance from self-love or our achievement from self-love.
I also think that a lot of the reasons that the world stomped it out of me when I say that is I was bullied a ton when I was a kid. And I think that other kids didn't know what to do with my healthy amount of self-love, and instead of learning to love themselves, decided to beat it out of me because they can't
Yeah.
have they couldn't, they weren't comfortable with it. They weren't comfortable with me loving myself, and stomped on me to the point where I learned to not love myself too. I learned to see, this is the other thing, I learned to see myself through their eyes, and they hated me. So I learned how to hate myself through looking at myself through other people's eyes.
Okay, so can we take a little hot tub time machine and go back to that era? I don't like that you just said they hated you. Who do you think they hated?
Oh, that they hated themselves probably,
Right.
and they took
Or
it
they
out
were
on me.
feeling
But
inadequate.
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I do think that they hated me. I think that they didn't know me. I think that they hated what they saw.
Right, but what they saw was not you. What they saw was a reflection of their inadequacy and of their lack of ability to be confident in who they are, their lack of
Yeah.
ability to show up as an authentic person. That's what they hated. It wasn't you. It wasn't you at all. It was their projection.
So,
They didn't even
all right,
bother to get to know you. They don't know who you were.
let let me ask it in in these terms then. If what they saw was someone who was really comfortable in their own skin and loved themselves. That's what I was at the time. I really genuinely loved who I was. And what they saw was too much.
But again,
So then,
it's a
I
matter
mean,
of
does it
opinion.
even really matter whether it's actually me that they hated, or whether it's something they projected onto me? The damage was done either way. The damage was done
I
that I
totally
learned
agree.
to look through those eyes and learned
You're
to hate
yeah.
myself because of other people telling me over and over and over again all the reasons why I was unlovable and
The
unlikable.
the damage is the same. You're absolutely right. The damage was done. It was horrible. Bullying is horrible for whatever reason, but psychological bullying, I think, is significantly damaging. The difference is if you look back and you say, I hate who I was, that's not accurate. You hate they thought you were. So, yes, the
But
consequence was
then
the
also
same.
who I became, because one of the things that happened when they beat it out of me was I made the conscious choice, or maybe not conscious, I I made the choice to become smaller so that I wouldn't be too much for them. And the person that I became when I became small was not authentic to who I really am, because I'm not small.
Right.
I've never been small. I've always been big and larger than life, physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I'm too much for some people. So when I became small, I did actually become a person I didn't like.
Okay, but that was because you were not authentic to yourself. You were
Yes.
putting on a mask to protect yourself from the bullies, which was probably the best defense you could have had. But it wasn't like you became a person you didn't like. You were behaving in a way that wasn't like you, in a way that you didn't like.
So I mean, what exactly then do we talk when we're talking about self-loathing? What what is that exactly? If you are liking the content, please like and subscribe, comment, and invite a friend to listen in. Thank you. When we're talking about self-loathing, what what is that exactly? So it's maybe not hating my most authentic self, but maybe it's hating the person that I have to put on day in and day out so that I don't make other people uncomfortable. In my situation, that was the person I became and didn't love. Um, I guess I'm not quite following what is your point, because I didn't like the person I was.
You liked the person you were before you were bullied. And then you
I
became
liked the
inauthentic
person
and
I
made
was when I
yourself
was a kid,
smaller.
and then yes, and then made myself smaller, and then I became someone I didn't like, and the self-loathing then just spiraled and spiraled. And the more I became someone I didn't like, the more I didn't like that person. And then the more I didn't like that person, the more I became more of a person I didn't like. So it really was self-loathing. It was a deficit of self-love. And the only way that I learned how to move through that was to just really take a good solid look at the person that other people shaped me into and recognize how much I didn't like that, because it was so inauthentic to who I really am at my core. So the next stage in my journey of self-love, besides just discovering that, I don't really like myself all that much, and this is not okay, and maybe I can do it better, then the next step was, so how do I then shed the things that I had become that I hated so much? and rebuild or build anew a person that I really could genuinely appreciate and love and like being around. So that was a
So
huge
there's
journey in itself. So I had to learn I had to recognize that my smallness was part of the reason I didn't like myself, because I was not born to be small. But I had made myself small and I didn't like that. And so I had to once again become comfortable not only in being bigger, but in caring less about what those bullies, because you're going to have bullies lifelong. Bullies don't grow out of it. I had plenty of adult bullies in my adult life who wanted to keep me small. And so I had simultaneously had to learn how to be my more authentic self, which was bigger than life, and at the same time, care less about what the bullies thought about me being too much.
absolutely. I just want to reiterate the cycle though. When you were young, you liked yourself, you occupied the space that you needed in the world, and then the bullies projected whatever their different deficiencies were onto you and made you behave differently in a way that was inauthentic to yourself, and you started to hate that person. I don't know, because you were inauthentic, or you hated the person who happened to be inauthentic, whatever, it doesn't matter what the cause and effect of that was. And then right now, as an adult, through a lot of hard work, you've realized again you can occupy that space and really like yourself and be authentic in that person who has self-love, despite the adult bullies. So my point
Yes, and
was,
that's
you loved who you were before the bullies shaped you into something else.
okay. So are we making a blanket statement that people who hate themselves maybe aren't hating their most authentic selves? Maybe they're hating on the people that they became to protect themselves from something?
I think that's one version of self-loathing. I don't think it's all of the version of self-loathing. I think that's a definite successful way to become someone who doesn't like yourself, is to not be authentic and not liking the person who you've become. I think there are many other ways of self-loathing as well, like knowing that you're going to make bad decisions could really foment into somehow self-loathing, or
Knowing
just
that you're
social
gonna make
conditioning to
them,
be small.
even knowing that you're gonna make them before you make them, is
Right.
what you're saying is enough to dislike yourself?
I think
Okay.
so. So there's this, yes, yeah. Okay, I
Mm.
was going to go down a
Oh,
side road. Go ahead.
okay. I see you. Okay, so this parallels that conversation we had about sin, and you had said one time in a previous podcast that you were like, I don't want to have to go to church and confess a sin that I know I'm going to commit again because I like doing that thing. And I wonder if that's maybe what you're
Uh,
kind of talking about, is that there's some
I'm
part of you that's like, I knew that this is going to be something I don't want to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I have to hate that for some reason.
I'm not sure I ever said I'm going to do it again because I like doing that. Maybe that's why, but it was more just I'm imperfect and I'm flawed and I'm probably going to do that same thing again. Not purposefully pursuing
I
that
think you
sin
said
because I
because I
liked it.
want
It
to.
was,
I think you said because I want to do that
well,
again.
we'll go
I
back and
think you
check the
did.
tape because
Okay.
that doesn't
Okay,
sound
we'll
like
check the
me.
tape. Okay, we'll check the tape. Okay. So I'm trying to follow. So I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow. Step away from generalities. I want to hear your story.
Specifically, what story? My journey of self-love?
Did you have a period of self-loathing? And if so, what was that like? And what prompted you to want to move past it or to move into a different place of self-love?
So it's interesting. We have parallel experiences, but with a very different main character energy. So I was not bullied as a child. I was ignored, completely ignored. I had friends, I had people who knew me, but I was so quiet. I never really let people know me very well. And so I was just this being that existed. And therefore, I never really had close friends, even if I had a couple of close friends. But for the most part, I was just an NPC in my own life. And because of that, I guess I never went through a period of self-loathing, but it did absolutely shape who I thought I was, which was not that important, taking up space, not very consequential to the world, that sort of thing. And so I remember distinctly, well, I remember when I was a kid, we would go to events with our parents, and if I dared to say something, of course, when I dared to say something, it had to be earth-shattering, otherwise I was taking up too much space. But I would say something and everybody would stop and look at me like, she's speaking. She's speaking. Nobody say anything. She's about to talk. That's how quiet and NPC I was. And then when I got my first job out of grad school, we were talking about some, scientific topic. And at the end of the call, my boss said, hang on a little longer. And he said to me, I was disappointed because I thought you were going to contribute more to the conversation. And to me, the conversation was fine. It was, people were contributing things that weren't even that earth-shattering. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, oh, I've got to contribute. I've got things to say. I need to say those things, even if I don't think they're that important, right? But I need to contribute. I need to start showing who I really am, showing what I can say. And it doesn't have to be the biggest, most important thing that people hear in that day. So to me, showing up in the world and being more, I don't want to make it so pedantic as being more vocal, but being more present, taking up more space, more audio space, saying more stuff, existing more and having opinions and all of that. That was really my journey toward self-love, is that I deserved enough room to say something that maybe no one's going to care about.
That sounds like a very, very similar journey, which is that you, for whatever reason, had become smaller than actually what was inside of you.
For sure.
Your outward presentation was smaller than who you actually are inside.
Right.
And
Yep.
so for me, I got there because of bullying, and maybe you got there from a different path. But also it's not just about big and small, it's about authenticity.
For sure.
You hadn't yet, it sounds like you hadn't yet given the world the opportunity to know your most authentic self.
No, I didn't. And I remember some distinct attempts to occupy more space. And again, you're right, it's not about big and small. It's about existing in the world as a person who's got an opinion, a flavor, an existence that's different from everybody else. I remember when I was in high school, I gave this huge attempt to show up. And it's a terribly embarrassing story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because that's what we're here for. In high school, we had a talent show, and it was we were both involved in choir and show choir and jazz choir and things like that. But we had a talent show. It was just going to be a showcase of individual songs that didn't really connect to one another. But I decided I was going to do the song Tits and Ass from Chorus Line because it was an out there song and I wanted to be bigger than I was. I could have aimed a little bit lower, but I was aiming for, I'm going to show up in the world. People are going to see me. Someone's going to see me for the first time. And so I did that. I got on the stage and I had this crop top and a tiny mini skirt. Yeah, it was the late 80s. And I showed up there as a 16-year-old and I sang top of my lungs, Tits and Ass in front of the entire school and everybody's parents. So my point is, it's not a linear path to being authentic to oneself. I think I shot a little high on that one, but it was this piece inside of me that wanted to be present and wanted to be seen as something that's different than just an NPC. And I there was a lot of attempts there, and that was not the most successful attempt.
Why? What was the outcome that made it?
It was really inappropriate for a 16-year-old to be dancing in front of the fathers talking about my tits and my ass. If you don't know the song, it's from a Chorus Line. It's about a dancer who needed to get plastic surgery to have a bigger tits and rounder ass.
Even today, that doesn't sound like you.
No, I was trying to break out, and I think I broke a little too much. It doesn't sound like me to dance
really
on the stage.
Proud of you. No, it doesn't sound like you to try to garner attention in that particular way.
I needed someone to see me.
To be a little bit crass to garner attention doesn't sound like you. You're not crass.
No, but this is exactly the point, that really wasn't what I was aiming for. I was aiming for like somebody see me, someone recognize that I exist. There was a This sounds like a very small story, but it was very influential in my life.
Wait, can I back up before you go into go to the next story? I am actually really super proud of you for that. And even though right now you look back and you go, oh man, that was embarrassing or it was inappropriate, the very fact that you had the vag to get up and demand attention from people at a time when that was really, really hard for you is amazing.
I'm laughing because I fucking demanded that attention that night. I demanded it. Like, I've got none. I need
So
100. 0 to 100 in one night.
that that's girl, sis, amazing. Like, I if only the rest if only we always had that kind of spark and gumption. That
My spark was
I'm really proud of that.
my spark was covered in so much crap. Not even like negative crap. It was just covered so carefully and so guarded that when I showed a little piece of it, it just exploded out there like that. The story that I was talking about was, which is relevant to this conversation, in high school, and of course these high school things don't mean a lot to us as adults looking back, but in the time it was very influential to me. There was a book in my high school. You know how teenage girls like to torture each other. So when I was 16 or 17, we had a notebook that got passed around, and we would anonymously write down stuff about other people, like, oh, so and so, I didn't like her shoes that day or whatever. Just terrible psychological torture, and it would go passed around so people could read what you thought of them. And sometimes they would mention names and sometimes they wouldn't. And I got my hands on the book. It came to me. And I read that entire fucking book. I wasn't mentioned once. Not once. So at that point, I'm thinking, nobody cares enough about me to even criticize me or say any, like nobody didn't like me, but nobody knew that I existed. It was a very humiliating experience that I wasn't even on anybody's radar for anything. So the consequence is I demand attention. I demanded attention, one for 3 minutes, and I got it. So, not a linear pathway. I didn't do that very often. I haven't sung in my crop top and miniskirt in a while. But as an adult, I've learned how to take up the space that I want to take up.
I think the reason why this is so interesting to me is because all of those attempts, those little efforts are part of the journey. Those all of those things are that journey towards self-love. And I think maybe there's this mistaken like maybe people think that you have to set your mind to it and then go do it and you push through till you get there. When in fact, what it is a lifetime of those efforts building upon each other. So maybe it was years before you did another thing that demanded attention, but it does not take away from the effort that you put in that moment to demand attention. That was practice for the next one, which is practice for the next one, which is practice for the next one, until it becomes a practice, until it becomes routine to love oneself or to demand the space that you take up in the world.
It's true, and the practices actually make a big difference. I remain dedicated to the fact that this is not a linear journey that you try, and then you get there. That's not at all the way it works.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not what you're saying either.
I'm saying it's the opposite of that. The fact that it's not a linear journey does not take away from the efforts that you put in, that all of those things can't be taken away from you.
Right, right.
They all are part of the building of the self-love.
I think this is part of self-love, is looking at those attempts, even if we thought they were failed at the time, as successes. It's the fail, fail, fail,
Yes.
fail, win, instead of just jumping to win, because you can't do that. You have to try different things and take risks and practice.
Now you got me thinking about high school and all the I took
Oh.
so many big risks in high school, and some of them, like you said, were humiliating, and I wished I could have taken them back. And now as an adult, I look back and I'm so proud of myself for taking those big risks, even when they were spectacular failures,
Give me some
because
examples.
all of those things. Oh, girl. Okay. Really? Okay. I had such a huge crush on this one boy that was 1,000% out of my league. And part of the reason I say that is because he was Mormon and was not allowed to date outside of his faith tradition. So when I say out of my league, I mean like he literally could not have dated me even if he'd wanted to, which he didn't. But I made it very clear to him and everybody in the rest of the planet that I really, really, really liked him. And I asked him out on multiple occasions, and he would tell me, like, no, you can't, I can't, I can't date you because you're not Mormon. I mean, I wasn't like stalkery, but I wasn't shy about it either. And so one time I decided that I would write a song for him. I'm not a composer, and I'm really not even that much of a musician. I can sing, but so I wrote a piano piece and I sang it at an audition for the talent show. And halfway through the song, it suddenly occurred to me that the entire class was looking at me, and there was no question who I was talking about when I was singing a song about wishing you were here with me, or some ridiculous thing like that. And I just was so exposed in that moment. I could have died. Looking back now, I am so proud of the young woman who had the guts to get up there and put it all on the line. And now I look back and there were some chances I didn't take that now I wish I had.
I wonder if we can categorize many, most, almost all of those terrible high school humiliating events that exposed us as amazing bravery and honestly what I would call self-love. Like I'm worth getting on that stage and
Yeah.
singing this song that I wrote that's a this is a decent song, sounds like a song, and I can play the piano and you can sing. That's an amazing
Yeah.
self-love reflection, an amazing reflection of self-love. And it feels at the
Yeah.
time so devastating and embarrassing and that the feeling of just a hot red face. And it's actually quite an accomplishment towards self-love.
Think so. I think so. And I think that part of why I equate these embarrassing moments or efforts to make myself seen with my self-love journey is because all of those come down to authenticity and and like owning it. Owning who I am, owning what I believe, owning what I think, what I say, and taking risks to let other people also see those things. And I think all of those really make up the core of what it is to love oneself. Is to be so authentically comfortable with myself that I'm willing to take the chance to share it with other people. Not that I have to share it with others to make it valid, but that's part of my journey is that willingness to be vulnerable and expose that part of myself to other people. And the older that I get and the more I love myself and the more comfortable I am in my own skin, the easier it becomes to take those risks and to become vulnerable towards other people, because I've started to recognize that there's a lot of people in this world. And if I come across people and I expose my most authentic self to them and they don't respond in kind, there's like 50 other people around the corner waiting for me to meet them and do the same thing. So I don't have to worry so much about what other people think of me, because there's lots and lots of people in the world and a lot of them are going to really appreciate my most authentic self.
Here's a slight distinction that I'm getting out of this conversation that we're having right now, which is this ability for us to share with other people how much we love ourselves. And that's the one that I have that reaction if I say, "Oh no, I'm great. I'm not worried about that." That's my showing other people that I love myself. I think there's a distinction between that and showing other people how great we are. Just being authentically the person that we are, the kindness and the pacifism and all the things that we define as great for ourselves, the reason that we love ourselves, not achievements, not performance, but showing people those types of things, not just how much you love yourself. I think there's a distinction there. And one is harder for me than the other. So if I say to someone, I'm awesome, no, don't worry about it, I'm awesome, I still have that feeling in my gut, right? But if I just walk into a room and let's say I mentor for startup companies, right? I walk into that room and I'm front and center and I've got the microphone and I got a lot of attention. A lot of people want to talk to me afterwards. I'm perfectly comfortable to take on that role and to be the person that people are seeking information from. So that is just showing that I've got some experience and some expertise and all that. I'm fine with that role. But if I went in that room and I said, no, you know what? You come see me because I'm awesome. I think that would be harder for me. Showing the piece of me loving myself versus just loving myself and showing people how great I am.
That's a really fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think that the core of loving oneself is the part that you first just described of you just walk into a room and you are awesome and that's all you need to do. You just need to go in and be your awesomeness for you to love that person. And then also alongside that is another piece of, are we willing to claim that and own that verbally to other people? And I don't think that's necessary for us to have to proclaim it to the world. I do for myself think that a necessary step has been not to hate proclaiming it to the world or to pretend that I'm less than I am. So for me, it's not about proclaiming it as is like the proof that I'm awesome is in my proclaiming it. It's much more that if it comes out, I'm not going to deny it.
Yes, yes, exactly. I think you're onto something with the proclaiming of it, because I believe there might be people who really are awesome people, like really are authentic. They know themselves, they have good values, and probably still, there's a subset of them probably still have self-loathing. So I don't think the being awesome is all it takes to love yourself. I think there's another piece to it.
Yeah, I think it's the owning it piece. It's the believing it. And for me, once I finally believed it, I was very comfortable with it being on display for other people. But I had to first believe it in myself. And a lot of the effort to get there was acting as if.
Right.
And I know there's some controversy about whether that's a good thing to do or a bad thing to do, but there were a lot of times when I would say to myself, okay, I'm going to go into this situation and I'm going to pretend I'm the kind of person who, and then I would behave as the kind of person who, and I did that until I actually became the kind of person who, because I was doing it.
I think we put that in the category of practicing.
Yeah.
Right. And I honestly, I don't think you were pretending that you were the kind of person who, you are the kind of person who, and you just said that to yourself to give yourself permission to be that authentic person.
Yes, but it was a critical message that I had to give myself
Right.
for me to allow myself to be that. Because if I was pretending, if I told myself I was pretending to be someone who, and someone else didn't respond well to that, I could be like, that's they're responding to this other person that I'm pretending to be, and that they're not hating on me. They're hating on that person that I'm pretending to be. And it hurt less. So I could just continue to be, and I could be like, but I don't care what you think.
Right.
Even if you don't like the person that I'm trying to become, I don't care what you think, because it was less painful when I framed it in terms of pretending, even though you're right, at my core, that's who I always was. I just had lost it and I had to practice it to rebuild it.
So there's a concept in the artist's way, which is what it's the way artists develop. It is nobody is for everybody. And I think that's oftentimes gets in our own way, that we want to be for everybody. And to do that, we either have to change, we have to mask, we have to be small. And we're never going to be for everybody.
That's just also another way of saying what I was saying earlier, which is there's other people.
Right.
I don't have to continue to pour energy into people that clearly aren't going to respond in a way that's good or healthy for any of us. It's okay to walk away and find other people who will respond.
I want to make a point too that loving yourself probably isn't a guaranteed state of being for the rest of your life. I think there are always going to be times when our confidence, our love for ourselves, not the confidence, but the true self-love is going to wane, and it's going to get better.
What you're saying is that because it's not a linear journey, there's also never exactly a time when we've accomplished it and it's done.
Right.
It's always going to be a work in progress. Like you said, it's not linear, journey. It's not something you attain and then you've got it. Woo! I can put the trophy on the wall. I achieved this. It's a constant practice. It's giving myself grace in those moments when I really don't like this person that I am today, to be kind with that person, to be kind with myself,
So
to
another
be gentle, and to give myself grace and space to just be whoever I am, even if today I don't like that person, because yesterday I did, and maybe tomorrow I will again too. When I was very early starting out on a journey from what was genuine self-loathing to self-love, I oftentimes had to think of myself as a child. And that was a really useful tool for me, because I would talk to a child with way more gentleness and kindness than I talked to my adult self. And so when I thought about my wounded child inside, that was a really useful tool toward stopping being so loathsome and so cruel to myself, because it's a lot harder to be that cruel to a child.
I love this irony that you're pulling out again, that we need to give ourselves grace when we don't love ourselves. Right? Like as if I fail in loving myself, that's a reason not to love myself. That's a terrible irony. And
That
it's not
is.
true.
That
It's not
is.
true. It's a non-linear journey, and we do need to give ourselves grace if in those periods of time when we're waning in our self-love and our authenticity or our size in the world. That's all part of it. Coming soon on Super Random Things with those sisters.
We spend our whole entire lives working towards the next thing. Everything about early life is about working toward the next thing. I feel like I'm resting up for the next big phase of my life, when the reality is that maybe this is just my life now. Like maybe this slower pace and this like backing away from social events, and like where I used to just be all in, right? And I would host the parties and I'd have all people in my life all the time. And now I don't want people. I don't want people. And I don't feel like I'm depressed or withdrawn. I just really, really like the quiet. I just like really like it. And maybe you're not there yet because your kid is far more active out in the world.
This is something that I think about quite frequently, because I did that in my professional life, where I chased the next degree and then the next title and the next title. And as soon as I got the next title, I needed the next title until I became a VP, which is, that's pretty much where I wanted to get. And the step above that is requiring a lot of personal sacrifice that I wasn't willing to make, family time, things like that. And so I went from a VP and I took a step down for the next job. And it was the happiest transition. I was quite content being exactly where I was in that moment. I was no longer sort of chasing this next thing, and I wasn't working so hard to try to prove myself, because it was a step down from what I had done, and I knew that I had succeeded at that other level. So I think it's important to distinguish if we're chasing something in our life that's tangible, something we can get, versus that ability to continually grow. It's not about continual growth, like a linear, here I am today, and tomorrow I'm going to be better, the next day I'm going to be better, the next day I'm going to be better. It's not like that. It's that we take these periods of growth followed by periods of rest and preparation for the next growth. Because whether we're preparing for that next growth or not, or anticipating that next growth or not, it's going to come. So what I was telling my friend this morning was, yes, it's not a linear growth that life is, but just the fact of doing this podcast has given me so much personal growth. Even though I talk to you every day anyway, just doing the podcast and thinking about it and being thoughtful and intentional about what we talk about has made me grow so much.
I love that idea, especially when you talk about that the thing that we might be chasing, for lack of a better term, is growth. And I think you're right. I do not want to ever stop growing. I always want to be moving forward, even though, like you said, it's cyclical and there are times of rest. But I do always want to be learning and growing and just taking in more of life than I have. I like experiencing new things. And at the same time, I think you're right that I no longer have a drive to pursue a career. aside from the podcast, which I love, and if this blew up, I would be so thrilled, because this is, like you said, this is growth. Part of the reason that I grow is because we're doing the podcast, and because I'm talking with the one and only person in my entire life that I have to Google words when we have conversations. And I love that so much. That just makes me so happy.
Kiwi says if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.